Mica Miller, 30, found dead in Lumber River State Park. Pastor's wife. Gunshot wound. Authorities ruled it a suicide, but her family and friends were skeptical. Mica had recently filed for divorce from her husband, John Paul Miller, a pastor at Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The circumstances surrounding her death were shrouded in mystery, and many believed foul play was involved. As the investigation unfolded, a dark web of abuse, infidelity, and corruption began to surface. Mica and John Paul's marriage was far from perfect. Friends and family described it as tumultuous, with Mica attempting to leave multiple times. She had recently grown resolute in her decision to divorce him, filing papers just days before her death. Mica's sister, Sierra, revealed that Mica had once said, "If I end up with a bullet in my head, it was not by meat, was JP." The couple's relationship was marked by emotional and spiritual abuse, with Mica feeling trapped in a cycle of control and manipulation. Her death raised questions about what really happened that day. Mica and John Paul's relationship began under scandalous circumstances. They met when Mica was just 14, and John Paul was her youth pastor. Years later, while married to his first wife, Allison, John Paul began an affair with Mica, who was then his secretary and babysitter. When the affair was exposed in 2016, both marriages ended in divorce. John Paul and Mica married shortly after, but their relationship was plagued by mistrust and control. Many believe the affair was the beginning of a toxic dynamic that would ultimately lead to Mica's tragic end. On the day of her death, Mica was seen purchasing a gun from a pawn shop in Myrtle Beach. Surveillance footage showed her alone, passing a background check. She then drove to Lumber River State Park, where she made a chilling 911 call. "I just want my family to know where to find me," she said, before the line went silent. Hours later, her body was discovered in the river. While authorities concluded it was a suicide, many questioned the timeline and circumstances. Was Mica truly alone that day, or was someone else involved? John Paul Miller's behavior after Mica's death raised eyebrows. Just hours after her body was found, he announced her death to their congregation, claiming it was self-induced due to her mental health struggles. He showed little emotion and quickly shifted focus to the church's needs. Mica's family found his actions cold and calculated. They believed he was more concerned with controlling the narrative than grieving his wife. His immediate push for cremation also fueled suspicions. Why was he in such a hurry to dispose of her remains? Mica's family revealed that John Paul had a history of controlling behavior. He allegedly tracked her movements using a GPS device on her car and slashed her tires when she tried to leave. Mica had reported these incidents to the police, but no action was taken. John Paul claimed it was for her safety, citing her mental health issues. However, Mica's friends and family believed it was another way for him to maintain control over her. In the months leading up to her death, Mica made several cryptic posts on social media about domestic abuse and unhealthy relationships. She spoke about reconciling her religious beliefs with her desire to leave her marriage. "God hates divorce, but does abuse hurt people?" she wrote. These posts were seen as cries for help, with Mica struggling to break free from John Paul's grip. Her words resonated with many, and after her death, they became haunting reminders of the pain she endured. John Paul consistently pointed to Mica's mental health as the reason for her death. He claimed she had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and dependent personality disorder. However, Mica's family disputed this narrative, stating that she was in a positive place before her death. They believed John Paul used her mental health as a tool to discredit her and justify his controlling behavior. Johnny Jacobs, a fisherman at Lumber River State Park, was the first to hear Mica's cries and the gunshot that ended her life. He described the chilling moments leading up to her death, including finding her backpack with personal items. Johnny's testimony was crucial to the investigation, but it also made him a target of online conspiracy theories. Mica's 911 call became a focal point of the investigation. While authorities confirmed it was genuine, some online commentators claimed it was fabricated or manipulated. Conspiracy theories suggested that John Paul had used AI to create the call as part of an elaborate plan to cover up her murder. The call's authenticity was hotly debated, with many refusing to accept the official narrative. John Paul held a funeral for Mica at Solid Rock Church, but her family chose not to attend. They believed the service was more about John Paul controlling the narrative than honoring Mica's life. In his eulogy, John Paul painted a picture of a perfect marriage, but those who knew Mica saw through the facade. The family's absence spoke volumes about their distrust of John Paul and their belief that justice had not been served. Mica had kept detailed diaries documenting her life with John Paul. These journals contained contemporaneous accounts of the abuse she allegedly endured. After her death, John Paul reportedly tried to retrieve the diaries, but Mica's sister, Sierra, took possession of them. The diaries were seen as potential evidence that could shed light on the true nature of their relationship and possibly implicate John Paul in her death. As the investigation into Mica's death deepened, allegations of corruption within Solid Rock Church emerged. John Paul was accused of misusing church funds and having inappropriate relationships with congregants. One woman claimed he had an affair with her while her husband, a wheelchair-bound man, mysteriously drowned in a community pool. The church's leadership came under scrutiny, with many questioning how much they knew about John Paul's behavior. John Paul's troubled past came to light, including a 1998 incident where he ran over a woman with his truck. He received a pardon for the crime in 2022, but the revelation raised questions about his character. Many wondered how a man with such a history could rise to the position of pastor, further fueling suspicions about his involvement in Mica's death. The case of Mica Miller sparked a firestorm of online speculation and outrage. Many believed John Paul was responsible for Mica's death, while others defended him. The online discourse became so intense that John Paul's lawyer issued statements calling for an end to the harassment. With public pressure mounting, it was reported that the FBI had been called in to assist with the investigation. However, with the case officially closed, it was unclear what role the FBI would play. Many hoped their involvement would bring new evidence to light and finally uncover the truth about Mica's death. Some accused John Paul of hiring a hitman, while others believed he had manipulated Mica into taking her own life. Mica's family vowed to continue fighting for justice. They believed the investigation had been mishandled and that key evidence had been overlooked. With the help of lawyers and supporters, they pushed for a deeper investigation into Mica's death. Their determination to uncover the truth kept the case in the public eye. Mica's story resonated with many who had experienced abuse or manipulation in their own lives. Her courage in speaking out about her struggles inspired others to share their stories. While her death was tragic, her legacy lived on as a symbol of strength and resilience in the face of adversity. Despite the official conclusion of the investigation, many questions remained. Why did Mica purchase a gun just hours before her death? Was she truly alone in the park? And what role, if any, did John Paul play in her demise? The case of Mica Miller was far from over, and the search for answers continued. Mica's family wanted a second, independent autopsy to uncover the truth about her death. However, John Paul pushed for immediate cremation, leaving no opportunity for further examination. The family believed this was a deliberate move to destroy potential evidence. Without a toxicology report or a thorough analysis of her injuries, many questions about Mica's death remained unanswered. The lack of transparency only deepened their suspicions and fueled their determination to seek justice. One of the most chilling pieces of evidence was the GPS tracker found on Mica's car. She had discovered it twice, and both times, John Paul claimed it was for her safety. Mica's family believed it was a tool for surveillance and control. The tracker's presence raised questions about how far John Paul would go to monitor Mica's every move. Was it merely about control, or was it part of a larger plan to ensure she could never truly escape him? As allegations against John Paul mounted, Solid Rock Church remained eerily silent. Former members accused the church leadership of turning a blind eye to his behavior. Some even claimed that the church had enabled his actions by protecting him from scrutiny. John Paul's alleged affairs with women in the congregation added another layer of complexity to the case. One woman, Susie Skinner, was linked to him shortly after Mica's death. Susie's husband, Christopher, had died under suspicious circumstances in 2021, drowning in a community pool. While his death was ruled an accident, the timing raised eyebrows. Were these affairs part of a pattern of manipulation and control, or were they unrelated to Mica's death? John Paul was accused of misusing church funds, including transferring nearly $20 from a mission in Kenya to his personal account. Mica's family believed she had been coerced into participating in these schemes, further entangling her in John Paul's web of control. The financial misconduct added another dimension to the case, suggesting that John Paul's actions extended beyond his personal relationships. Mica's family hired a lawyer to challenge the official investigation and push for a deeper probe into her death. They hoped to uncover evidence that had been overlooked or ignored. The legal battle was an uphill fight, but they were determined to hold John Paul accountable, no matter how long it took. Their efforts kept the case in the public eye and ensured that Mica's story would not be forgotten. The public played a significant role in keeping Mica's case alive. The public's involvement put pressure on authorities to re-examine the case and consider new leads. Mica's death took a heavy emotional toll on her family. They struggled to grieve while fighting for justice and dealing with the constant scrutiny of the case. Her sister, Sierra, became a vocal advocate, sharing Mica's story and pushing for accountability. The family's pain was palpable, but their determination to uncover the truth gave them strength. As the months passed, Mica's family continued their search for closure. They held on to hope that new evidence would emerge, or that someone would come forward with information. The case had become a symbol of the fight against domestic abuse and the need for accountability in positions of power. While the road to justice was long, they refused to give up. Mica's story: death sparks debate, justice fight, truth's pursuit continues.